Pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, fellow board members and cabinet and faculty and parents. A note for all of you, if you have an agenda in front of you, I encourage you to go down to number 10, unscheduled audience participation. That if anyone during this time, number 10, would like to have a chance to have a microphone and speak to us as a board, I encourage you to read the instructions and to see Angela, do you have the cards over there, or are they back on the table?
Over by Mr. Gibbons.
All right, so by Mr. Gibbons, there are those white cards. If you would fill those out, even start now, and then just give them to Angela. Sometime during the meeting, she'll bring them to me, and that way we can go through that number 10 in an orderly way. Also know that there are instructions there that will help you understand the process and how we're doing that according to our policies and rules. So, taking ourselves back to the beginning of the agenda, Mr. Stefik, would you like to take attendance, please?
Certainly. President Donnelly.
I'm here.
Vice President Brazington.
Here.
Secretary Stefik here. Treasurer Guthrie.
Here.
Trustee Bailey. Trustee Schaefer.
Here.
Trustee D'Alessandro.
Here. Very good. We move on to number 2, changes to the board agenda. None. We move on to number 3, our consent agenda.
As a point of order, Mr.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to take us to page 2 of the minutes from the October 9th meeting to the financial and operations update, letter B, which reads as follows currently. Mr. Barna and Mrs. Swift explained that Open Schools has offered funding to school districts to open a practical assessment exploration systems lab for special education students. A room has been designated in the high school for CI and LOFT students. Due to the county offering funding now, the Board of Education voted to approve. And the next paragraph states, Jay Brazington moved and Jay Guthrie supported to approve the $25,000 $671.10 cost for the practical assessment exploration system from Talent Assessment Inc. Vote 6 ayes. I would like to suggest that we add a statement to the first paragraph that clarifies that the cost of the lab will be a pass-through the district and the payment made to the county, so that this is not coming out of any part of our district's budget.
First of all, Mr. Barna, is that a correct understanding, since that's under your section?
Well, it is coming out of the actual funding from obviously the county. So it is going to be a check written from us to the county for this, or to the company that offers this. So I just want to be clear on that. But it's a pass. We're getting the revenue from obviously from the county, and it's going out the board to pay for this.
So the county's paying us the same amount.
Correct.
We're writing a check to this company.
That is correct.
All right. I guess the thing is, on the board, does everyone agree that that was what you understood and heard when you made this motion? So, Dr. Brazington, I think you made the motion.
Yes, that's what we understood.
That was your understanding? So is everyone okay with an amendment to the minutes which describes it verbally that that is a pass-through? Let's do it by vote. If so, say aye.
Aye.
Is anyone opposed? Angela, do you have that as a way of amending the minutes of the 9th?
Yes.
All right. So as amended then, let's go through the consent agenda. So as you're voting on this consent agenda, you're voting with that amendment understanding. Yes, sir.
Just a point of order. That's
Yep.
where it needs to take place in that.
Correct.
In that motion, not what you just did.
Okay.
Officially, as part of this motion, add to amend the agenda.
So verbally, as you're making this consent agenda motion, add with the amendment that that section's a pass-through.
As presented, as amended.
Yes. So would you like to do that, Dan?
Sure.
All right.
Move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Is there support? Dr. Brasington? Discussion. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And I just lost my note. There it is. Prearranged request to address the board. Clear Lake Elementary Student Leadership Team.
Good evening. I'd just like to take this opportunity to welcome you to Clear Lake. We always appreciate the opportunity to welcome the board once a year. This evening, very excited to introduce you to 3 students who are members of our student leadership team. They work very closely with Mrs. Nemi, who is our IB coordinator. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to her and then also invite our 3 students to come on up, if they would, please.
Thank you. So welcome to Clear Lake. At this time, Chase, Carter, Lucy, if you want to come on up and join me. So our leadership team actually got started last year because we, in the building when I came, did not have a formal student team or like a student council. So this is something that was created late last year. But I'm going to actually turn it over to them and let them explain it a little bit to you.
Hi, my name is Chase Cardona, and I would like to welcome the Board of Education to Clear Lake. We are all members of the Clear Lake Leadership Team. The leadership team meets at least once a month with Ms. Nemi, Ms. Pizzo, and Mr. Bigelow. At our meetings, we do different leadership activities to become better student leaders, and we also share ideas on how to make Clear Lake a better place to learn.
Hi, I am Lucy Mahalik. The leadership team is made of 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students. We were all nominated by our teachers either last year or new 2nd grade students by this year's teacher. It was our idea as a team to keep members each year so that we can continue to grow as leaders. One thing we did last year as a team was create a student vision and mission statement. We hope to help others live the learner profile and make the world a better place.
Hi, my name is Carter. Each year we focus on 3 learner profile attributes as a school. Last year we chose caring, thinker, and principal as the 3 main profiles to focus on. Each month, teachers nominate 3 students from the class that has shown one of the 3 profiles. The leadership team is in charge of handing out the certificates and making the announcement to school. Mrs. Nemi is going to share about our new school-wide learning profile project.
All right, so the leadership team this year, we kind of keep adding on to what we will be doing as a group. And so one of the things that they're going to be working on this year is our building-wide initiative, which is going to be called #ClearLakeCares. And so this is something that was brought to us from a 5th grade teacher, Colleen Ransford. When all the walkouts were happening last year, she had heard about the walk up. And so PTO rolled with it, and then along with the leadership team, we're going to be helping the school-wide initiative, just really promoting that learner profile attribute of being caring. And so the team, after Friday, we have our kickoff assembly with the school. We'll be helping the PTO and Mr. Bigelow on a weekly basis help teachers find students that are caring. We'll be nominating students are nominating students, teachers are nominating students and each other. And then we're going to be creating a giant chain of caring acts that's going to be hopefully spanning around our building. And then the leadership team will be helping with that on a weekly basis. So it's kind of grown each year. So it's pretty exciting to see them from last year and grow as leaders to this year, and then the following year as well. Does anyone have any questions?
I just want to say that I think it's just absolutely amazing. to be teaching leadership skills to kids this young, and also to do things like mission statements and vision setting. Wow, fantastic. Great job, you guys. Number 5, Board of Education matters, Lighthouse Connections Academy update, and it looks like also a motion.
Yeah, so last last board meeting, I should say, Jill gave an update, and so this is really just a motion to move on that to update the amendment to the contract.
All right. Yes, Jim?
I'm just going to volunteer to make
Please.
the motion.
Please.
Thank you. Move to approve the first amendment to the contract between Lighthouse Connections Academy and Oxford Community Schools, Schedule 7.8, restated to include lease agreement.
Is there support? Mr. Stepik? Discussion. Dan?
Tim, when we originally put this out and we discussed it, and it was brought to us for a lease agreement for the basement area, can you clarify, currently that basement is used, we currently use that basement, and the area that they use, is it going to be encapsulated in the area we already use, or is it an additional space?
So really the main portion of the lease is for a mailbox, okay? When it comes to space, the portion of the agreement when it comes to space is only in the event that they need a meeting place will they meet. So it's not like there's a permanent office or someone coming to the admin building every day. No. It's two things. One, it's mailbox, and two, if they need a meeting place, a room, that they could use that lower level conference room. That's what that is.
Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 6, curriculum and instruction, Mr. Weaver. Nothing tonight. Not so for Mr. Barna.
There's something on the agenda?
I don't know, I see a bunch of attachments, and I got a bunch of books. Please, Mr. Barna.
Well, good evening, everyone. Jacob is here from Yo and Yo, and I won't be presenting as per normal each year, I should say. We have Jake talk through our last fiscal year audit. So obviously, this is the fiscal year 18 audit that has just actually concluded. And so he's going to walk through a presentation of the audit and the results and findings. So.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay, or do you want me to use a microphone?
Yes, the camera.
Can you hear me okay? Yeah. My name is Jacob Sobczynski, and I'm the principal in charge of the audit for June 30. I'm from Yo and Yo. We're the audit firm who's responsible for the audit. One of my duties as principal in charge is to make sure I deliver this right here. This is an opinion on a financial statement. And we call this the highest level of assurance that we can offer on a financial statement. And basically, in here we say that the financial statements are presented in accordance with all the, in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. We accept this as a clean opinion, an unmodified opinion. So congratulations, you passed. Part of that audit process, we do a lot of test work. We look at a lot of things. We look at a lot of paper, a lot of electronic transactions. Some of those things we look at include journal entries. We look at the receipts process over different areas. We also look at the disbursements process. We review state compliance. There's about 84 areas of state compliance we look at through our process. We review the pupil membership process, how we count our students, which remember is Proposal A, how we get our funding. We also look at the budget process, payroll process. We look at the bid process to make sure we're bidding things out appropriately. We look at petty cash to make sure our cash handling is appropriate. We look at internal controls and monitor and make sure that there's safeguards in place to protect our assets. We also look at governance, board policies, procedures, board minutes. We also do what's called a single audit program. When we reach a threshold for spending federal dollars, we have to do a special audit called a single audit. This year we selected special education and nutrition to test. So we tested 2 programs because of the way the years fell. As a result of that, we had some areas of improvement we identified. Last year we had identified a few. One, timeliness of reporting. The management, the business office wasn't prepared for the audit. This year they were. So there was vast improvements in that process. So thank you for taking our recommendations to heart. The other one was audit adjustments. As a process of not being prepared for the audit, there were some areas that we had to correct. Those were corrected last year. We also identified, corrected last year, and it was improved this year. There were far fewer and they were immaterial, small amounts. Also, we identified budget overages last year, big improvement this year in our budgeting process. We also identified a deficit in the community service fund. That's the child care fund. It's still in a deficit this year, although it was improved. As a result of the current year testing, there were some areas we also identified for improvement this year. One of them is a federal equipment listing. When we purchase equipment, when we purchase large assets under federal programs, we have to identify those assets and track them separately. Some of those weren't being done, so we recommended that all of those will be done in the future. We also identified that approval for federal equipment purchases. When we purchase assets from the nutrition cluster, the nutrition dollars, that's federal dollars, those have to be pre-approved by MDE. There was a purchase this year that was not pre-approved. The cash requests, federal programs, when we test those, are all reimbursement based. So we have to spend the money and then we can request the funds back. There was a small dollar amount that was requested prior to spending the money. It was spent subsequent to that. And the final item is a prior period adjustment we identified as a material weakness. Material weakness is more severe in nature than the other ones I mentioned. Management has responded to that material weakness. They've written a corrective action plan, and as of today, Connie, through September is reconciled, correct? So we're up to date with that corrective action plan. They put it in place and have corrected the material weakness that we identified. So thank you again for taking our comments seriously and making the changes necessary. Okay, here comes the fun part, the numbers, right? When we look at the numbers, we look at the general fund. That's our operations. That's how we fund our operations. So we look at that separately for this presentation and then all other funds. All other funds include the food service, it includes debt service, it includes the child care, it includes capital projects. Typically, those are self-funded and self-managed within those funds, so we exclude them from our general operations stuff. So general fund is what we want to look at for this part right here. Largest assets on the books is cash in the general fund. And then we also have due from other governmental units. That's our July and August state aid. That's a receivable to us. That's an asset. We don't get that until July and August, but we record it as revenue in this fiscal year. Conversely, on the liability side, that's money we owe. The largest one on there is typically the payroll and related withholdings for our teachers for July and August, and our employees, and then our accrued salaries payable as well, related to that. So it's the wages and withholdings for July and August for teachers. Our fund balance at the end of the year was $10.5 million in the general fund. We'll talk about that. All other items, all other funds in there, you'll see a large cash balance. That's the 2018 bonds that we haven't spent yet. And also included in there is restricted cash. One of our bonds, we're holding cash in accordance with the bond document, holding cash until the end, and we make that big payment. So we're going to see that number, that $4.6 million, grow over the next few years as we build up that cash balance in accordance with the bond document. So with me so far? Stop me if you have questions, please. Okay. Historically, we've always looked at that fund balance as a percent of expenditures. A couple of years ago, the state said, well, that's not really true anymore because of the way we're receiving some of our funding, the 147C dollars. Familiar with that? That's the amount that we get to subsidize our benefit rate for our teachers and employees. So we changed our measurement. Instead of percent of expenditures, we changed it to a percent of unrestricted revenues. That's generally our state aid dollars. People often ask, what should our fund balance be? Where should we be? And typically we say between 10 and 20% is what we consider a healthy fund balance. 5% or below, you become an early warning from the state, so make sure you stay above that. You're above that. The $10.5 million of total fund balance, $1 million is already spent in prepaid for insurance, so that comes out of there. And then we also have, the board and the management has identified, signed a certain amount, $1.9 million for healthcare. Remember, we're self-funded for healthcare now, so we want to set some money aside in case we need that for an emergency. When we look at total revenues, of the general fund, it was about $60 million. Expenditures 59, so our net change in fund balance was about $890,000 increase in fund balance, taking it from 9.6, that was restated from our prior period adjustment, to a fund balance of 10.5. Again, all other funds is a little lopsided because we got bond revenue in there, $10 million of bond revenue, thereabouts. We haven't spent that yet, so that looks like a big increase in $10 million, but really that's money that's set aside for bond projects.
Yes. I just want to clarify one thing. We have spent a little bit of that bond proceeds, both on fees for the architects to design, obviously, the bid documents that are going to go out for construction next year. We've also purchased 12 buses, so there has been approximately $1 million spent of those bond proceeds.
Yeah, that change in fund balance, about $1 million related to excess from the 2018 bond money, I believe that's correct, Sam. And then $1.4 million set aside for that.
Does that $10.9 million reflect those expenditures already?
Yes.
So we're not calculating that and then taking the one plus money and
the money we have spent is in that expenditure.
Okay.
It's all blended together for this purpose.
All right, great. Thank you.
You don't see what the percentages of our fund balance are?
Yeah. Unrestricted is 17.75 for the current year.
Okay.
Unrestricted revenues.
Got it. Just confusing numbers. Thank you.
Yeah. So when we start planning things, about 4, 5, 6 months before we even know what our student counts are, what our revenues are. So that's our original budget. Remember, we do that before the end of the year. That has to be in place by July 1st. From that original budget to our final budget is when we do when closer to the end of the year, when we know a lot of things, and we've done a lot of amendments between then and now. All in all, at the end of the year, we said we were budgeting $60 million. We actually got $60 million, very close to our budgeted amount. From the expenditure side, we said we're going to spend $60 million. We spent $59.2 million. Some cost savings in there. Again, we look at a percent of expenditures. It's about a 1% variance. We call that a conservative but reasonable budget. Again, over 3% was called alarm if we weren't living up to what we said we were going to live in line with that. All right. So 25 years ago, in 1993, Proposal A was passed. So if you remember how we get our funding, Proposal A says you get a foundation allowance times the number of FTEs, the number of students. That's your allowance, less the amount you get for property taxes. So the calculation is irrelevant what we get for property taxes. We still get the same bucket of money from the state source and the local source. That accounts for about 94% of our total funding comes from the foundation allowance from that proposal. I wasn't voting 25 years ago.
I believe you.
How we spend that money, I'm sorry, there's some other things out here. You can see our federal dollars are $1.5 million, relatively small in comparison to the total dollars. Get a little bit from a transfer in, and then interdistrict sources, we get about 4%. So again, 94%, a substantial portion comes from that Proposal A formula. Excuse me. Where we spend our money. Obviously, the two largest areas we spend our money is instruction and then supporting services. That's everything else, really, from admin to other supporting roles in that service, in providing education. Community service is a little bit. Debt service, years ago, we took out an energy bond. The energy bond is going to be repaid from the general. That's the only debt in the general fund that we pay. Everything else is funded by millage and other sources, and I'll talk about that. But that was intended to have energy savings, which would then go back and pay that bond.
I can't, the light is on that one. Is that supporting services?
Support services, $20,627,742, 35%.
Okay, so that 35% number is up. We spend more now on support services than we did a couple years ago. Is that just
That's a percent. It's relatively consistent.
Okay.
And that's consistent with a lot of schools, that total of 85% going into education, 85, maybe a little bit higher. But that mix is generally proportional to what we see in other districts.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Real quick, if I can. When is our $315,000 roughly for the debt service of that energy bond? Do you know when that'll be paid off?
It's in this big document. Do you want to answer right now?
No, that's
Remind me and I'll get that answer for you. It's in there. Actually, I'm going to skip ahead a few slides. It is not on that because it's general fund, I do believe. Sorry. Okay. This is some trends. This is the fund graph part, right? So some trends. Revenues and expenditures we see increasing. There's a lot of factors that go into that calculation.
Excuse me, you asked about the energy?
Yeah.
2022.
Okay. It is this one. It's that second one on that list.
And it's on page 617 of the audit.
Makes sense. So the fund graphs, expenditures and revenues over time, we see this increasing trend. A lot of factors go into our expenditures increasing, the revenues increasing. Those include increases in enrollment, increases in the foundation allowance, and again, this bloat we have from the subsidized benefit cost, that 147 scheme. So there's some bloat in there as well, and that's why the state has switched to that calculation of using revenues as opposed to expenditures, unrestricted revenues. Again, factors that go into that increasing rates, enrollment trends we can see over the last 10 years have been increasing in the district. It's a great thing to see. A lot in the state of Michigan, we've seen drops come off. So increasing enrollment is increasing services, and again, trends that go into that is quality of service, quality of education, offerings you offer the students, and people wanting to be a part of this district for sure. Another factor that goes into that is that foundation allowance. Proposal A set that dollar amount back in 93, 94, and we've seen that foundation allowance go up and down over time. Specifically in the Great Recession back in 2008 through 2012, we saw the state cut that funding. Hurt a lot of schools. We've now crept back up, and this year, in 2018, we're over that original threshold from that drop. So, yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
Can you flip back one slide? I want to. I'm just trying to, 2012, where we were, and then with our funding dipped in 2012 from the state.
Yes.
When the recession came in. I was curious as to what the year goes for and when our enrollment went up after that. Thank you.
So foundation allowance, again, we've now crept back up over the point where the state had reduced our amount. So that's a good thing. We're getting more money. Better stuff. This is the difference in the subsidized 147C money. I always think this is really interesting. So our out-of-pocket is that green amount. That's the percent we pay out of pocket. The difference between the green amount and the blue amount is being subsidized by the state. They're reducing our out-of-pocket costs for benefit costs, which is, again, a good thing. We'd be paying 37% out-of-pocket. For benefits, they've cut that down to 25%. But again, we're a pass-through for that. We get money in and then we pay that money right back out.
This is the key reason right here why when you look at a district's expenditures and the percentage of salary and benefits to total expenditures, and it's at 80%.
Yeah.
The large part of that is MIPSers right here.
Which are benefits to the staff?
It's
They're-
retirement.
Retirement, okay. Just clarifying. Thank you.
Quick question. Why does it only pick up, I'm curious, between 2012 and 2013?
There was no subsidy.
There was no subsidy from that point, so we were on the hook for the entire amount?
That's
Yes.
correct. And in 2013, I'll push ahead to here, maybe this will help. In 2013, we have an unfunded pension obligation, the state does. Again, we're a member of the state plan, of the MIPSers plan, pension and post-retirement benefits. We're a member of that plan, and it's in a deficit at the state level. GASB 68, which came out in 2016, basically said every district, it's a governmental change, but every district in the state of Michigan is going to have to be recording their portion of the liability. I turned it off. Silly me. Okay, I thought it was. There we go. I'll keep it as steady as possible. So GASB 68 said this net pension liability will now be your proportionate share of this state pot of deficit. So your portion of that as of 17 was $79 million. In 2018, your portion of that is the $86 million. Now this year, okay, so this year they said that's the pension portion. Now the health care portion that's also in a deficit, GASB 75 has to go on your books. This year, $30 million, $29.8 million went on your books. Again, this isn't cash basis. This is GASB 34. This is full accrual basis of accounting. This isn't how you budget. This isn't how you see monthly statements. This is done once a year for GASB 34 conversion.
And
I lost you.
OPEB that you see on here, that Jake is referring to, the $29 million, the effective adjustment of GASB 475, that OPEB is other post-employment benefits,
Yes.
healthcare.
That's the retiree health care.
I do have a question. So if you go back to, we'll go back to the MIPSers,
This one.
would that increase cause our liabilities to go up?
Not your liabilities on your books. The liabilities on your GASB 34 full accrual statements. Remember, school accounting, we do two different sets of books. How we do governmental accounting. We keep one set of books on what we call a modified accrual basis. That's how you do your budgeting. We don't record fixed assets or long-term liabilities. That's done on a full accrual basis in the conversion. So if you look at the first 4 or 5 pages of the financial statements, you'll see that conversion happen. So we record all the fixed assets, all the long-term assets, and we record all the long-term debt. And that's where this liability comes from, and is recorded. Yes, ma'am.
So prior to 2018, this wasn't on our books.
Prior to 2016, there was nothing on your books. In 16, the pension came on, and in 2018, the OPEB came on, pension, the other post-employment benefits.
The state made us put it on our books.
The
Federal government.
The accounting rules of governments made us put it on the GASB.
Okay.
Government Accounting Standards Board said this is how you should be doing it. So they changed the rules of accounting.
That's when you see the net
It's a
position.
moving target, these rules.
Yeah.
That's where you see the net position of pretty much every public school district in the state of Michigan negative now because
Right.
of those two large items primarily.
This is just light reading. This is just good
It's
stuff.
just bedtime reading. The financial statements are fun. I love
Right.
financial statements.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff that goes into those. The
Right.
staff love doing it. A lot of bedtime reading. Again, if you have questions in the statements or footnotes in them, usually can give you some clues as to what it means, right?
Okay.
Ms. Guthrie?
Yes.
Thank you. For those of us who need a little more clarification,
Absolutely.
can you tell me, I guess layman's terms, is GASB and OPEB, is that money coming out of our budget? You know, the state says it's on your budget. Here's how much we're paying you.
It's not on your budget, it's on your balance sheet.
I'm sorry.
Yep,
Thank you for
that's-
clarifying that. That's
yeah,
an
it's on your
important-
balance sheet. Your budget is really determined by that green line. Okay, that's your out-of-pocket. The blue line is also in your budget, but it's revenue in and expense out, all in the same.
Is it I guess what I'm asking is, again, let's use the term pass-through.
Yep.
Is that basically what we're talking about with
The
pass-through?
difference, GASB is the accounting rules. This is
Or with the
yeah,
amount
this is
that's attributed?
This is what 147C, it's state funding.
Mm-hmm.
The difference between those two is revenue and expense. The green line is your expense as a percent of your wages.
Got it, okay.
Does that help?
It does, thank you.
The OPEB and the pension liability only relate to your net pension or net position. This is full accrual accounting, which you don't budget for full accrual accounting, you don't monitor full accrual accounting, nor should you really.
Because the state pays it.
Because this is based on full accrual accounting, and you don't budget your books based on full accrual accounting.
Okay.
You use modified accrual accounting, which are these numbers here, which is revenue and expense. And if we look at the balance sheet, how you would see a balance sheet on an ongoing basis, month after month, internally, there's no long-term liabilities on here, and there's no long-term debt on here. Because this is modified accrual basis, not full accrual. Does that help you?
Thank you, it does.
Okay.
I need an accounting class, I guess.
This is tough stuff sometimes. When we go to full accrual, it gets a little complicated, but we also see on that full accrual basis, again, we take that balance sheet that I showed you up front, and we add on capital assets. Those are our long-term assets, our buildings, our buses, anything that has more than a year lifespan and over $5,000 in initial cost. I think is our threshold. And then all of our debt goes on as well. Long-term obligation bonds, as well as the school bond loan bonds.
It's a lot more complicated than my personal budget from the
It gets a little complicated. One thing I want to point out is the long-term debt portion of that. The government obligation bonds, that's our bonded debt, is at $110 million. School bond loan fund is at $28 million. And remember, a few years ago, to save the district's interest costs, we refunded the entire amount of the school bond loan fund, and we refunded it into a general obligation. So really what we're doing is we're saving money, we're calling it a debt, and then we borrow on the school bond loan fund to pay that debt over, thereby saving the district some interest because it's cheaper debt. It's cheaper debt to have a long-term bond than it is to have a school bond or school loan revolving.
And the plan, the yearly plan for that was what the page that we just referred to
Yes.
was showing when that's going to be paid off,
Yeah.
6-17.
That's right. And there's the entire amortization schedule for that debt when those debt payments are due. So you'll see these top years up here, principal and interest. Total payments are higher because that school bond loan fund is in there that we're then going to repay with additional school bond loan funding. And that's reducing the total interest expense that's cash out of the pocket for those costs. Remember, debt and capital projects bond proceeds are all kept in separate funds and they don't affect this general fund. So we budget for those in separate funds. Money doesn't come out of the general fund, out of education, we don't pay for debt. Two different debt levies, two different villages. We get 18 mills as part of the state aid proposal A, and 7 mills goes to debt service. 7 mills isn't enough to pay the debt we have, so we borrow on school bond loan fund. That's the state's sponsored plan in accordance with how schools are funded.
Because we don't want to pass that on to taxpayers.
Because we don't want to increase the debt levy, the 7 mills. So we just extend the debt to
7.9.
I'm sorry, 7.9. Yeah, we want to increase that, so we just extended that more.
Thank you.
All right, so a couple of things just to remember for the future. Sorry, I'm turning my back to you. Some of the things to keep in mind for the future. The state economic and political condition. Remember, we're at the mercy of the state on where we get our funding from. That foundational allowance increases or decreases, and that's really based on eroding state revenue sources, population leaving, less tax revenue, less sales tax that we can collect and redistribute to all the districts in the state. Rising fringe benefit costs, cost of health care, cost of the MIPSERS rates that keep increasing. Our out-of-pocket has remained relatively consistent, but the total cost of that, if the state decided they didn't want to subsidize that anymore, would increase our rates. Enrollment trends, and then the pension and OPEB obligation, that's that liability we reported this year. New accounting pronouncements, we'll keep our eye out for them. There's a couple coming up. They're described in financial statements. We'll keep a close eye on those GASB changes, on those accounting pronouncements and changes to accounting. Make sure that any of that affect the district, we can give you notice on those and help you work through those changes as well. Yes, ma'am.
How does this list compare to a similar report for other districts?
This is just discussions for topic. These are in every school district out there. Those issues right there. That's a state. Those are statewide issues. All right. Yes, ma'am.
So I was reading through everything. So it looks like one of the issues we had internally was we bought a van out of nutrition services using federal dollars. We didn't get approval from the MDE before we bought that van.
That's correct. So anything that goes, remember, so that's part of the other fund. Nutrition is really kept as a separate fund. All the revenues generated and all the costs of nutrition stay within a checkbook, a fund. Any dollars that go into that fund are considered federal dollars. And so anytime we purchase a fixed asset, we're spending federal dollars. MDE requires that we have prior consent from MDE before we make purchases, except for if it's on an approved list. The van is not on the approved list.
Okay. That was one of the questions I had. So going forward, just had to sort of check base.
Just email MDE. There's a email to email them, and then they'll either accept or reject it based on their criteria.
Did we have to go back then and get permission after the fact, or how do we take care of that now that it's been bought?
Karen called the state, and they were okay with the purchase after the fact. So obviously, we went to get board approval. We didn't think at the time we needed the MDE's approval to purchase. So once we had the board approval, we proceeded. And so after we found out the food service was actually a federal program because of the dollar threshold in fiscal year 18, Karen Bissett called and had it actually taken care of. So
we're in good standing.
Good standing.
You're good standing.
Okay. Then I was looking through all the documents, which was a lot of reading.
I'm sorry.
But I made no sense of it. Then the other issue that we just need to be aware of is the timeliness of the monthly reconciliation.
Yeah, so the reconciliations for bank, for the ADP account, for the bank account, where we pay the checks out of the checkbook, was being reconciled, but there were some entries on there that weren't being recorded. So they were being done closer to the end of the year to try to save some workload. But in reality, we should be making those entries on an ongoing basis, and that was our recommendation to correct material.
Yeah, and I saw the corrective action.
Corrective action plan, and again, to Connie's benefit, I know she went through and everything's reconciled through September at this point, so we're up to date. Obviously,
so it's nothing that didn't get recorded, just didn't get recorded on a timely
That's correct.
basis. So everything at the end of the day reconciled.
As of June 30, 2018, everything is reconciled.
Okay, and we didn't have to go in and add anything based on your audit?
We did add, that was this other adjustment, right? That prior period adjustment, the material weakness.
I don't think I saw that.
Yeah, we had talked about it, and this right here, prior period adjustments.
And that's at 433,000. So that would
That's
have
correct.
been money spent that wasn't reflected in our journal.
It was actually money not spent, it increased your cash. So again, certain things weren't reconciled in 100%, and therefore we had to go back and reconcile. Kind of went back during the summer and reconciled that account and identified the 433,000 that should have been recorded in the prior year, increasing in our fund balance, which is actually less expense. Yes, sir.
Not a question, but just a comment.
Please.
Stepping back to the last topic just before that, apparently, not getting permission for a van didn't stop her from winning the award that she won.
I'll tell you this, Karen is really good at what she does.
Yeah.
I have, we haven't tested nutrition in a couple of years now, and so getting back to talk to Karen, I haven't seen her in a few years. She's just as good as she was. Again, those are two minor oversights in material, really, in the nature of things, just non-compliance issues that need to be corrected, and obviously they've been corrected now.
Going forward, anything over $5,000 in equipment purchased from food service must get approval from the MDE. We now know that, obviously. So,
You won't bring anything to us unless you had that approval.
that's correct, absolutely.
Would that have included the espresso machine thing that we want?
You know, I have to look. That was purchased, though, I believe, not with fiscal year 18. I think it was fiscal year 17 funds, if I'm not mistaken. And we weren't characterized as a federal program because of the dollar threshold in fiscal year 17. Is that a correct statement?
It's not, it's still a federal program.
Was it still a federal program?
It's always a federal program, it just wasn't a material.
I thought, was it material enough? That's right, okay.
Yeah, it's just a material federal program.
I'm trying to recall what that purchase was. And I believe it was 22 or 23.
Over 20.
Yeah, it was over
If it was
20.
under 20, it might be zero threshold.
It was over 20.
It was over.
I cannot recall.
Okay.
Board members, anything else?
So do you give us like a grade in this? Or, I mean, your high.
Former teacher and current principal wants a grade.
Scale of 1 to 5.
You know, I go
I
back.
think the fact that we have such a great fund balance is like.
I think that right there, that right there
highest
is the
level.
highest level I can give you as a grade. That's an A on the numbers. I'm not going to give you a grade on this stuff. This is, I mean, again, these are areas for improvement.
Absolutely. We have a growth mindset here, growth mindset.
All of this is areas for improvement. How can we better make sure we're in compliance with laws and regulations and have better controls over our assets and our operations. So, I give you a grade.
We'll take that.
But all in all, I look at this as well as part of the grade, adding to fund balance, not using up fund balance, not going into a deficit, maintaining a healthy fund balance so we don't have to borrow state aid, which costs the district money, putting money into programs. Again, Oxford has some really interesting programs. I think you guys should be proud of that. You guys should be proud of the programs you offer as well. It's a pretty interesting district and something exciting going on in Oxford.
Board members, anything else? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate your time and trust.
Mr. Barna, do you have anything else for us?
I do not.
All right. Human Resources, Mr. Pass.
Well, good evening. So give me just a moment to pull something up on our website here. So hopefully all of you had a chance to see my emails last Thursday regarding board book. So the district has moved towards utilizing the software program to disseminate our board materials both to the public, which is now available on our website, as well as to our board. So I think you'll find once you get into the system, it's a much more streamlined interface, and it also creates some efficiencies with Angela Weaver in terms of not having to put materials in multiple places. So we're looking to create some efficiencies. So I was able to see that most of you, or I think half of you, were able to get on at least, and see that. For those that have not, if you have any trouble getting on the website, certainly call myself or Ms. Weaver. We'll be able to help you with that. But essentially, when you go into Board Book, it should be a pretty clean interface. You're going to see all the different board meetings that are available. Once we have more of them in the system, you'll see more dates populate there. And then when you go into the actual meeting itself, there are going to be 3 different areas and ways that you can look at the information. The first one here is exactly what it says. It is just the agenda itself. So if you just want to look at the agenda, that's where you're going to go. The second one that they call the board book. The board book is then a complete PDF document that includes the agenda as well as every document of the packet that you receive. And if you view this in PDF form, it actually has an index on the side. And so if you view it with that index, you can actually select the items and it'll take you directly to that particular part of the agenda or the attachment for that. The third area is they call the quick view. And this is a much more concise version. It's your agenda but then has hyperlinks to each of the documents that are provided in your packet. So if you're, if you want a nice cleaner version, you can use this approach, and then when it comes time to look at one of the documents, you click the link and it'll open those supporting documents. So our hope is that this will provide a much cleaner interface for you to be able to interact with that. So any questions? I know some of you have been able to get on.
When you're providing this information, like right here, and you click on the hyperlinks to get there, when we provide this information, if there's anything that is a guideline for vote or anything like that, is that redacted before it gets on here?
So there are two different versions of Board Book. There is the private viewer, which is the board and cabinet. And so you require login credentials to get to that information. And so your packets are complete. If there is information that it's not available to be, or is exempted from public view, when we post the information on the public side, there might be certain elements of that board package that are not made available to the public. So there's two different versions. Yes.
And that the only reason it wouldn't be available is because of guidelines that are set forth by the state, or are they policy or
law, various laws that would prevent us from making certain things available to the public, certain packets or portions of perhaps a closed session documents, those things would not be made available to the public.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
I just had a comment on it when I talked to Angela the other day about it. I'm like, oh, what do we got to do now? And it was really easy. And really streamlined, and so good move.
Between you and maybe Angela, I know that I went in as off our main website as a public person could, community member could, and I went to the current meeting agenda and minutes, and as Dave said, all those hyperlinks are there unless it's something we can't act on yet. I was just curious as to when that would be visible to the public. So if our meeting is on October 30th, when is that going to be posted on the website for our community to be able to access? I know that's not necessarily a human resource question. Is it like the Friday before? I know that we used to try to do everything like the Friday before.
It's actually Thursday.
Yeah.
So Thursday, when you normally get that packet, the same time that the private portion is available to you, the public version is available to the public.
That's great.
All at the same time.
I just wanted, thanks for clarifying the timing of that. I wasn't quite sure.
That's great.
That's great.
So for those of you that have not been on the system yet, if you're having any trouble with that, give us a call. We're happy to help. Hopefully it'll be a streamlined experience. Any other questions about Board Book? So the only other item that I had on the agenda for human resources was the hire process, all-staff hire process. We reviewed some of the protocols that we had in place, made some slight modifications in terms of our process. Wanted you to see what we were implementing. I had not had any plans to go through that entire document. It's quite lengthy, but that is the process that we'll be rolling out with our administrators, and certainly in time for our hiring season for all of our different positions. So if at any point you have any questions on that, certainly let me know.
Please go ahead.
At some point, will our Google Drive no longer be valid?
So our hope was that after tonight, we would be able to cut ties with that and move completely to Board Book, certainly with if you're comfortable. So I guess I would defer to the will of the group. If you're comfortable severing that and then moving it completely over to Board Book, we're ready to do that.
Sign up.
Yes, Dan.
That's right.
More of a comment than a question. I appreciate, I don't know if it was David or Angel or Tim or whoever found the software in order to make it easier, more efficient. I think efficient is the best word that we need to use, because without being efficient, we're taking time away from the other things that we need to do that affect the classroom. So I appreciate whoever researched, found this opportunity. I do appreciate it.
Any other comments? Anything else for Mr. Pass? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Everyone, we're moving on to number 9, student services.
Good evening. In your board pack, your link to the schools of choice memo that we discussed in the last board meeting. Schools of choice for second semester.
So do we have a motion? Someone to make the motion? Mr. Stepik.
I move to approve the schools of choice 2018-2019 enrollment dates for second semester.
And is there support? Dr. Bracington, support, discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Do we have any more? Thank you. Is there any more cards out there? People wishing to talk during this section? Okay. Mr. Myers, would you please address the board?
Do we need a microphone?
There was one.
So I can't speak that loud very long.
Here we go.
Bruce Myers, Delino Road, Oxford Township. First of all, I'd like to thank the board for making agendas available to the public. I think that is terrific. That's something I've been asking for a long time. It appears that we have the board packets available now to the public. That is a huge step towards transparency as such, and I really appreciate that. Thank you. One of the things I wanted to address was basically accountability and sanctions. As the board, you basically have to supervise basically administration, and some of the things I was asking for, you've already addressed. Mr. Subchinski, I pronounce it right, close enough, has addressed a lot of this. I just have a couple other extra questions with that. When I was reading over the audit, auditors found, quote, combination of deficiencies in internal controls such that there is a reasonable possibility that a material misstatement of the entity's financial statement will not be prevented or detected and corrected on a timely basis. That goes back to like what you're saying about the $433,940 that basically was omitted from last year. Well, everything has been picked up already and corrected, but why? How are we missing like $500,000 almost? So year-end reports are a little bit rough. I noticed that we're sending them into the state kind of like at the last minute. So are we suggesting that we might do this earlier in the year? And then also, there's like a lack of budgetary controls that resulted in a continuing deficit operating loss in the community service fund, which is like the primarily the child care fund of $122,149. I'd like to know how we are addressing that. The bank reconciliations are still not being done fully timely, but it appears that there's been a good improvement, which is great. I have a concern because it appears that we have lost some federal awards, or the federal awards were disallowed because we failed to comply with the terms, and we are forced to refund the money. So I may be incorrect in that, but that's how it appears to me, so maybe we can address that sometime in the future. So basically, it appears that there's been recommendations already for the reconciliations and addressing a lot of the issues that I have found. And I think that it's a good step in the right direction. But thank you so much for putting that information on the website that we can access that. So that's pretty cool. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have a question for you. Your item before bank reconciliation, but after I got reporting sooner, because we seem to be waiting till the last minute. What was the next one? I think the first word you said was deficiency, but I missed the rest of it.
Was that the budgetary controls that resulted in a continuing deficit, which was like the continuing operating loss
Thank you.
in the community service fund?
Yep.
Which was addressed during the presentation here. So that was mainly primarily child care, and that was $122,149. So basically, it looks like everything I had as a question has been pretty much addressed, except that, has these deficiencies been reported to the state the way they have to be when there's that deficiency? And have we come up with a corrective action plan yet? So is that something that we have to address in the near future? And then basically, that was about it.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Mr. Superintendent, do we, with an expert here, do we want to defer any of these questions, or we want to try to have a response in due time?
If it's okay with the board, the question in regards to the Oxford Early Learning Center deficit and what are we doing? Sam, you want to answer that, or?
Sure. I have no
Go
problem
ahead.
answering that. Sure. So there were several changes made to last year at the end of the year, as well as at the beginning of this year, to address an increase in tuition, primarily for the after-day or after school program, as well as the morning program. Washia's group increased the tuition component to increase revenue, in addition to making some operational changes within the buildings to basically have more efficiency with her staff and the amount of students that she could legally have within the rooms. So that would hopefully save us. We're looking to really mitigate the negative loss that we see as $122,000 in change that was stated. We're looking to not have a negative situation this year and hopefully mitigate much of that loss that's sitting in the fund balance this year through changes to tuition primarily this year and the increases to tuition.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
If I can just follow up, I'm going to say that in a little bit clearer English that I can understand and not so accounting-ish. So we were running a deficit in the Early Learning Center. We recognized it. We were budgeting actually for a larger deficit than where we came in. So while we reduced it, we didn't reduce it in its entirety. Part of that was because we didn't want to raise the prices on tuition and before and after school care on our parents after the school had started. We didn't feel like that was fair. And so we delayed those increases in prices till the start of this school year. It's our intention that we think we'll be pretty close, if not there, to having the deficit entirely removed by the end of this school year.
Awesome, good. Good. Larry Rosner.
Good evening. I want to talk just a little bit about the programs and so forth that deal with the Michigan legislature and business. In business, the board of directors they're picked by the stockholders. If the board of directors in business, all of our businesses, the board of directors mess up, what happens? We lose money. You know, that gets people's attention really quick. They do that. Well, in education, we follow the business model. The board of directors, they're elected by the residents right here. And this board has far more responsibility and a lot tougher job than any board of directors in a business. If you mess up in business, yeah, you just lose a little money. If we mess up here, we really have affected a person's life forever. So that's pretty important. And I think the character of what happens is also important. This is the Michigan legislature. This is the law. This law says election laws. And it says If you don't follow these laws, it's a misdemeanor. Wow. One of the people that's running for the board, the Michigan legislature said that he was using the word to re-elect. And that's a misdemeanor. And on October of 82, a letter was sent. This letter, right here, that he was to cease and desist using it. And it was to be effective August 15th. The letter was sent the 8th. It should have been effective August 15th. Well, and you can look at the laws, and it's very clear that it says advertising goes to. This right here is dated 9/30. It's a long time between August 15th and 9/30. And I think it's very important that the people on the board, you know, we all have laws, we all can mess up and put something out that's not right. But once we're notified, there's not much wiggle room. And I say that because of the importance of the position that each of you have. And we spend a lot of time talking about money, but it's really the children, not the money. And I've been very critical of the board in the past because we pay the taxes. We hire. I think boards have spent a lot more time worrying about students other than the people, students that are here. The board really needs to focus on the students that are here. We pay the taxes. You're our representative. So all we can do is request them. And I thank you for your time.
Mr. Rosen, I have a question. You raised a document and said 9:30. Could you just tell me what that document is? As I'm trying to take some notes, I don't know what to reference that to. Okay, thank you. Thank you.
And this is the...
I got that one. And that was the August 5th one that was supposed to be effective August 15th.
Wow. Yeah, that.
Okay.
That one right there.
Yes. All right, thank you. Thank you, sir. We appreciate your comments and thank you for sharing. Patrick, is it Dahmer or Damer?
Damer.
Patrick?
I won't need a microphone, I'm pretty loud. My kids tell me I am. So I'm here to say thank you, but before I do that, I want to give a little context of why I'm here to say thank you. Live in the district, we have 3 girls in Oxford schools, a 5th, 8th, and 11th grader. And my job is not location dependent. We can live anywhere in the country as long as I can get to an airport, okay? So we could choose any district in this state. We did live in North Carolina in a very highly thought of district there for several years. But we choose Oxford. And I attended the candidate forum a couple weeks ago, and I walked out of there and I was concerned, a lot of the information financially that was presented tonight, there was one candidate, that seemed insistent that our position financially was not very good. So I did some digging, and I'm, not an accountant, I don't work for Yo and Yo, and finance isn't my thing, but, I got online and I found this Michigan Bulletin 1014, which I never knew existed, but it ranks every single district in the state, and you can see exactly how much money every school has to work with. I was shocked, okay? I was absolutely shocked. Oxford is ranked 26 out of 27 public school districts in Oakland County in funds received to put towards their students' education. Now, when I asked friends of mine, we were at the football game Friday night, I was quizzing everybody around me in the cold and rain, right? Oh, we're in the top 5, we're in the top 10. 20, everybody was absolutely shocked, and I was blown away. I mean, I cannot believe the wonderful education opportunities, programs that Oxford offers, yet, I mean, you guys are doing it, I mean, I call it champagne tasting of your budget. I mean, you're delivering above and beyond. So I really, wanted to come here. I think it's important because, I was down in my office. I kept running upstairs going, look at this, look at this. I was upset. So I think with the election coming up, I've contacted John Riley, our state representative. I've contacted both of the major party candidates for governor, in terms of how they're going to level this playing field. I mean, there's districts in the state that receive $27,000 per student. I mean, Oxford's at $9,508, I believe, kind of right around in there. That was published numbers as of February. South Lyme's the only district in Oakland County that receives less than Oxford. So I'm here to say thank you to the administration, staff, support. I mean, you guys do a great job. The monies, when you look at it, they go towards teaching. They go towards the curriculum. You do a great job. You're 552nd in the state of 830 schools in dollars received. Yet, when you look at what monies go to educating students, you're ranked in the 300. So you pass 200 schools by getting more dollars in the classroom. So again, super appreciative of what you're doing. I think it's, our job as voters, as this community, to go bug some people and find some more dollars, because you certainly, have done a great job with the dollars you are given. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much. All right, we move on to number 11, clarification.
So I normally don't do this, but sort of along the lines of, what was your last name again, Patrick?
Damer.
Sort of along the lines of Mr. Damer. I was actually out of the district last week when when our community hosted the forum, as well as I've been given updates, I'll say it that way, of just parents in general having concerns about maybe some of the discussions and comments and questions out within our community regarding multiple topics, multiple areas within our schools. And so I think that it is important that I address, some of these comments or questions that have been made in our public. And it's more just that I want our public to know where we're at. I'm not taking a position or trying to do anything like that. I just, in a very clear way, try to explain some very complicated topics. And so I'm going to attempt to do that tonight, so bear with me. I think overall, I want to just say this when it comes to finances. So in the downturn, back in 08, 09, when districts were losing hundreds of students, and based upon the funding that we get from the state, when a district has a building, there is so much overhead cost involved with that building that if there's any way that you are going to have a possibility of breaking even, you have to keep the capacity of that building near its max. Said another way, if we're at Clear Lake, we're going to be heating and cooling this building. We're going to be running electricity. We're going to be paying Mr. Bigelow his salary, whether there's 200 students, 300 students, or 500 students. The districts that kept their buildings at capacity or near capacity and either closed or consolidated buildings during that downturn came out the best. I don't know any other way to try to explain it other than that. Oxford was very specific in not only trying to retain existing families and students, but did we have families that, yeah, parents lost jobs and they moved to other states to take jobs? We did. How did we counteract that? We counteracted that by being open for schools of choice, which most of the districts in the state of Michigan are, and allowing parents to choose to bring their students here, as well as trying to offer programming that quite frankly other districts didn't offer. And so in general, I'll just say that has served us very well. And so one of those programs that we started numerous years ago is our virtual academy. And so I want to put out a few facts. All right. Oxford Virtual Academy has enrolled a record number of students, both full-time and part-time, this fall. Until all the dust settles and receive our audited numbers, we don't know exactly where the final numbers will come in, but tentatively, OVA added over 300 full-time equivalent students. Therefore, yeah, we're going to be needing to hire additional teachers, mentors, counselors, and we need some additional space. You could almost think of it as adding a Leonard Elementary School all at the beginning of school. Okay, that's a lot. That's a lot of students. That's a lot of support staff. That's curriculum. That's space. There's a lot of things that have to go on. And so, but that's all good things. That's what our numbers show at the end of the day. I do want our district, our taxpayers to know that when it comes to our bond and sinking fund dollars, they're not used for OVA operations. Before we even went before the voters and said, hey, we want you to vote for this bond and this sinking fund, we had to give the state a list of what we were going to spend those dollars on, and we did that. And so when it comes to our bond, you know, we're putting on new roofs at the high school, we're putting in new parking lots, sidewalks, we're putting in heating and new air conditioning. We're buying new buses. When it comes to the sinking fund, we're doing some security upgrades. We're buying technology for our students. In fact, one of our first purchases out of our sinking fund dollars that we just collected was we purchased 1,020 student Chromebooks. 80% of them, or 800 and some of those, went to the high school. The other 200 and some went to the middle school. What I want our public to know is that when you are spending your bond and your tax dollars, those dollars are specifically going into the buildings that are within our district boundaries. OVA generates enough revenue that it is able to pay for its teachers, its curriculum, its space. We don't need to use bond dollars and sinking fund dollars in order to do that. Another area that came up was some discussion about our recently approved cyber charter school. As the board knows, you all authorized Lighthouse Connections Academy. I want to give you an update. We originally had estimated or a projection of hoping to get 200 students at the start of this fall. We were notified by Lighthouse that they have approximately 237 FTE for this fall. But just as a reminder, we only receive 3% of that student foundation allowance. But 3% of 237 students at our base foundation allowance of $7,871 equates out to $56,000. Okay? Our Lighthouse Academy is a public school with open enrollment statewide. The far majority of their students are not coming from Oakland County nor our neighbors. In fact, some of the last numbers that I saw, some of these students are being enrolled as far away as not only in the UP, but I mean in the corners of the UP. And so our Lighthouse Academy is doing exactly what we had hoped it to do, and it's attracting students that we had hoped it to attract. Our district is still committed to providing students with a quality global education. There's many factors that have contributed to the number of our international students going down, and I would just say that that it's on purpose that our numbers have went down. I can tell you when the Oxford Board of Education hired me in 2015, I heard loud and clear from our community that while they were not opposed to international education or students, there was not a good feeling about maybe the number of students. And so I remember having very open and frank conversations with the public, with board members, and that, yeah, while that's still important, we also know that maybe we don't want the numbers that was previously projected. And so this year, yes, we have 1 F1 student and 2 J1 students. So again, to be clear, both F1 and J1 students are processed through SEVP, which stands for the Student Exchange Visitor Program. So all students are referenced as exchange students. This year, in the state of Michigan, schools are not allowed to receive the Student Foundation Allowance for F1 students. So F1 students, we charge tuition, and they have to pay tuition. By law, that full tuition amount, that cost, has to pay for the entirety of their education. No tax dollars can be used for that. On the flip side, J1 students, we can collect the Student Foundation Allowance for, and therefore tax dollars are used to educate those students. Those are the two biggest differences between F1 and J1. I am proud of the strides we have made with our curriculum. I know that I put a tremendous amount of pressure on Mr. Weaver, and I am the first one to say that specifically MSTEP scores are not the most important thing. However, it is a piece of the entire puzzle. And so when it comes to just I'll say the flip side, not the financial data, but curriculum data. We have a link on our website to mischooldata.org. It's a website with a wealth of information, not only about Oxford, but about all of our public schools and test scores. Here's my caution. It can be very difficult to interpret if you don't live within that world. A month or so ago, Mr. Weaver presented a thorough analysis of our MSTEP scores during the September 11th school board meeting at Oxford High School. A video of this meeting is still available on OCTV, so thank you for doing that and keeping that out there. But my caution is this: when you go to that website and you look at all this data, there's 2 icons that I want you to pay attention to. One icon says about this report, and another icon says more about the data. If you click on those, it will help you define the data that you're looking at. I'm just going to give you like one example. There may be a certain number of students. If you don't click on that icon, you're not going to know that number may not include special ed students. It may not include in-district students. It may not include whatever that report has to do. You need to be clicking on those icons so that you fully understand what that data means. I think maybe the last area, one of the biggest areas that I've been just hearing a lot of rumbling about is within student services, and not with student services, but with our FTE. And so here's what I want to try to get across to that average mom and dad out there too. There's really two numbers. There's head count and there's FTE. Head count is the number of people, individual bodies that are in this room. FTE stands for full-time equivalent. So we have many students, both in district, out of district students, school of choice students, OVA students. Across all of our categories of students, we have a multitude of students that are not full-time equivalent students. They may only take 1 or 2 classes. They may be taking other classes in some other public school, or I could be a high school student sitting at the high school taking 6 classes, but taking 1 class through OVA. And so those are the 2 biggest differences when it comes to head count and full-time equivalent, okay? We get paid this year $7,871. That's the base amount for a public school district in the state of Michigan. We get paid that by our FTE, not by our head count, okay? So, if a student is, I'll say it this way, if a student is half-time at the middle school, they would be taking 3 classes. We provide 3 classes of instruction for that student. On the flip side, we only receive half of that FTE, half the $7,871. We don't receive the full amount. But for whatever amount that the student takes courses from us, we get that in reimbursement from the state. So, I'm only going to do the last 2 years. Here's numbers. In 2017-18, our audited full-time equivalent was 6,203.96. Let's just call it 6,204. Our head count was 7,252. That tells you there's a lot of students that we have out there that are not full-time students. That's okay. This year, our preliminary full-time equivalent, our full-time FTE, is 6,514. That's why at our last board meeting, or that first one in October when we came back, we said our count was up approximately 300. We're talking full-time equivalency. Head count this fall is 8,610. Obviously, you see both numbers going up. In 2017-18, school of choice head count was 965. In 2018 and 19, school of choice head count was 1,265. All right? So, you got to keep with the same things here. If my head count in 17-18 for school of choice was 965, my overall head count in the district was 7,252. 13.3% of our students, in regards to head count, are school of choice students. Likewise, in 2018 and 19, our school of choice head count was school of choice head count this year that we're predicting is 1,265. Our total head count, 8,610. So our percent of total head count of school of choice this year is about 14.7. At the end of the day, while I'm not an accountant, I'll tell you from an operations standpoint, if we don't keep our buildings full, we pay for it. Because we're paying for that overhead, no matter if they're full or not. I think in conclusion, if you don't hear anything else, please hear me with this. Not only myself, but every one of my cabinet members, I expect to have an open door policy. In my tenure as your superintendent, my goal has always been to lead with integrity by being transparent, open, honest, with all district data and resources. In the same manner, I am steadfast and leading our administration and staff in the pursuit of excellence. I have never, ever been more proud of our students, our staff, and our programs that we offer than I am today.
Mr. Jerome, thank you very much. Board members, note number 12, a number of scheduled activities for calendar review. And let's move to final board comments. Ms. Schaefer.
I'm not going to say much other than I don't know how much more clear we can be and how much more transparent we can offer ourselves through the statements that Tim made, emails that the board has that we have tried to clarify, maybe some needed clarification to that, the forum and other websites and Facebook, and I'm not on any of that because I just think, but I appreciate you taking the time to clarify it, and that's, some of our emails back and forth, that's really what I wanted, because I feel that everybody's questions, I hope, and concerns are now addressed, and we can move forward.
Okay, thank you. Dan?
Well, the young man just left.
He weathered a long time.
Man, these people are old and they got a lot of wind. But I will tell you this, it's good to see the kids come out, and the first young man, Chase, I don't know Mr. Bigelow, but you might want to get him on the radio because he had a great voice. It was very, very good. So please let them all know that we appreciate their presentation and their time, because it's not always fun to come to meetings and listen to accounting stuff. So, Jacob, I appreciate the numbers because that's really our guide for why we're here, really. Because without the financial wherewithal to provide for the students, we're just sitting at a table. And it was brought up by Larry that it is important that the kids. I've been on this board, I don't know, quite a number of years, and there's not a day, a time that goes by that the money, you can always recoup money, right? But you can't recoup a kid or a child, and if we don't give them our all, we failed that individual. And so my whole thing, ever since I've been on the board and while I'm on the board, will always be make a decision that's best for students. And I also have a feeling that, when Tim said, no matter how many students we have in the building, we still have to pay Mr. Bigelow his salary, he smiled. He's exactly sure. But there's three things that go into a student and a good education, and it's really important, and I've said it all along. It's students, we know we're going to have a student. We know we're going to have a district. The third component is a parent, and we have to do everything we can for students that don't have that level of involvement from their parent, because maybe they're working 2 jobs, or maybe they're traveling. Today's society is much different than it was when I was going to school, where both parents were always, my parents for that matter, were always there and had that time with me and my brothers. But it's a much different world, so we have to do whatever we can do to support those students any way we can, and our staff is phenomenal. The finances allow us to take care of our staff, and it's a trickle down. If the staff is happy, they're going to give their all. If they're giving their all, the kids are getting a good education, and they're getting the attention that they deserve and they desperately need. And when that student goes home, they say, I had a great day at school. My kids never say they had. You ask them, what did you do in school? Oh, nothing. But today's kids, I just like these 3 that were here. They came up, they're engaged, they presented themselves very well, and those are the things that we look for. So I'm just very, very proud of our district. It's not without a lot of hard work on our staff and our administration team. You guys do a great job. It's a we're not perfect, but we're getting there. So thank you all, and that's all I got.
Dan, thank you. Mr. Stepek.
Thank you. Mr. Bigelow, thanks for having us here. It's always great. Thanks for getting us nice chairs again. That helps. Love the kids, man. Dan was so right about that first young boy, Chase. He definitely could be the voiceover. Great kids, great program. That's awesome. Jacob, thanks. You take something so dreary, and as much as you love it, you can tell you do. And so that helps us. So thank you. Clarified some things tonight, and that's great. And I want to thank Mr. Damer. It's not very often that we get people that would spend the effort that you did and the research that you did and going out and then come and applaud us. Usually we get tore down. And so it's real refreshing to see that you as the public can find that we are doing a good job up here. And I very much appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Guthrie.
Thank you, Mr. President. Leadership everywhere, as all of us probably know. When I was coming up, and I'm not telling you when that was, leadership was kind of a buzzword. It was a hot new thing. A lot of schools were building buildings to accommodate leadership programs. If you take a look at any colleges, or if you take a look at any corporations, even the one that I work with, they have leadership either departments or they have programs and services allocated to leadership. So I wanted to thank you very much for offering our students a leadership team opportunity. I just think that's fantastic, and they're learning skills that, as Mr. Donnelly pointed out, they're skills that I work with every day in the boardroom with a large corporation. So I think like learning how to understand and set a mission and a vision. Things that I found challenging as a professional 30 years after I started my job. So I think it's really just fundamental. So I really want to thank you, and I very much want to thank the students. It takes a lot of courage to stand up and offer what they did, and it's so much fun. So much fun for us. That's the best part of our job, is seeing the students. So thank you for bringing that. Thanks, Mr. Bigelow, for having us too. I also wanted to say thank you to our accountant, Yao and Yao, right?
Yo and yo.
Yo and yo. Sorry. Yo and yo. And for really a terrific delivery. I think it's great, and thanks for being flexible to allow us to ask some questions, because as we all know, transparency is really important and understanding is important. As Tim said, in layman's terms, it's a little easier, and thanks for helping us understand that better. So we have a lot to sit with, but it's great information. Thanks for that. I love Board Book. Thank you so much for giving me Board Book. Mr. Throne will confirm, because he's seen my computer. Google was not working for me. So I really appreciate having the opportunity to see our materials, and I also am so glad that we've made them available to the public as well. I think that was a fantastic idea, and it's something we needed to get done. So thank you very much for taking on the software and helping us come up to speed with that. I'm going to read my notes. I want to thank Mr. Throne very much for his clarifications. I am a board member who sent an email immediately after I went to the forum saying, I am so confused and lost, and I need some help to understand all of the meetings that I've been to in the past 2.5 years and make sure that we are okay. And I think it's so important to have this time when we level set a little bit and come together as a community and say, okay, we do have some questions, and we need to address those questions and make sure that we're on the right path. So if it's not clear, that we are on the right path at any point, I so encourage us to get back to this place, this kind of meeting, where we can all come together, ask the kinds of questions, following the format that we have. And I also want to thank those who brought their comments tonight. It's fine to ask questions. That's what we want. That helps us all learn and grow together. Mr. Throne also made it clear again, and I want to reiterate because I heard this again and again and again in the last few weeks. This board and Mr. Throne's cabinet and Mr. Throne are open to questions. The door is open. The transparency is there. We so badly want to be the governance that is working for our constituency. So I can't emphasize enough how absolutely true that is, and that we are coming from the place of please ask us questions and let us learn together. So thank you, and thanks for bringing comments always, and questions. Thank you very much, Mr. Dowling.
Thank you, Dr. Brazington.
Sure. I echo once again everything my fellow board members have said. Just a few additions. The video, I think probably Matt's department came up with the our team, our town, our community. If you haven't had a chance to see that, I hope you put it like front and center on our website page, because it is just phenomenal. And just hearing President Donnelly's voice as part of that. Who knew that you had that kind of voice? I should go to your church often. Boom. There. You got my attention. So it was just a really cool video and a great way to connect our community. And the Friday night event that was hosted at Oxford High School, the athletic department, our marching band, our cheer team, our parents, our football team, just a great way to represent just the very best of what it means to be an Oxford Wildcat. So, and it's just, you get goosebumps type thing. You get so excited. And then we're going to do really well again on Friday. I just don't doubt that. I feel bad for Luke here. And then, let's see, I also wanted to say I had a chance to represent the board along with Tim at a Saturday night celebration for Karen Bissett at the food service director meeting up in Lansing. It was just an honor to be there, and a very deserving award for someone who's just dedicated so much of her life to just feeding the children of our community. So that was just a really nice event. And at that, I think I'll leave it. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Yes, it was great doing that video with you, Matt, and you know, it's exciting to have a football team going into the playoffs. But what's more exciting is to have you and Jordan walk in my office and remind a bunch of football players that it's about integrity. I'll do that anytime you want, as long as that's the message. Because
Wednesday afternoon, so cool. I might be there.
And that as a community, we're here for one another, right? And I just thought that was great. Man, I think it's the last 4 or 5 board meetings. I've simply said how proud I am to be a part of this board, a part of this district. I mean, when you've got elementary kids learning how to do mission and vision statements, and I wrestle with 40-year-olds who don't know how to even do it or know why, it's incredible. It is incredible. We're preparing kids to live out in this real world and do things, and that is just absolutely exciting. Sam, a year ago I popped you in the nose and asked you why we missed a target this big. Proud of you, thank you. What a great job. And to get an AA+ by our auditors as an independent source, just proud that we followed corrective actions, that we saw some things through, and we're always going to have them, but I'm just so proud that you're nailing them and getting them done, so thank you.
Thank you. We're not always going to have corrective actions. I just want to state that.
We always have improvement.
We always have improvement. I want to thank you for saying that, but I also want to thank my team, Connie and my entire business services team. I can't do it without the team.
Board book is an amazing tool, finally not having to bounce between 2 or 3 things. I just got to figure out why I keep getting bounced out of our internet, and I got to go on my tethered phone. So that's, but other than that, I was able to upload board book to OneNote, and I've been writing notes like it was a piece of paper. This is absolutely exceptional. So thank you very much. For those who participated in the open unscheduled discussion, know that notes have been taken. If there's reason to follow up with you on any of the items that you mentioned, I think I took some pretty good notes. And so I'll leave that at that. Clarification. I finally got myself onto one of the community, maybe they don't know they let me on, Facebook pages. And I think Jordan needs to go talk to everybody on those Facebook pages about integrity. I don't like what's being said in our community, and I don't like the mess, the noise. And, you know, as a president of a board, you wonder, what do you got to do? We got to spend hours every meeting, like, trying to correct information. And here's what I want. I want to tell everybody that's there, it's an open door. You want to meet once a month and pick a subject every month and dig into that subject because you think that there's a snake under the rock or a lie around the corner? Let's attack it. We've got nothing to hide. But we can sure do this whole thing more efficiently, and we can do this thing for the sake of the kids if we get in a room and start talking. Facebook is not the tool. And there's a whole other things that aren't the tool. The tool is sit face to face and listen and communicate and solve problems. And so I just want to come alongside our superintendent and say, I'm in. As a board president, if you want to meet with me, several of you want to meet with me on a subject, I can bring in a board member, we'll do it. I mean, one of the cabinet will do it. I'd rather have that open discussion, that open, honest, face-to-face discussion, than have to chase things for days and weeks and months because they're floating all over the place. Let's just hit it. If it's all for the sake of the kids, let's just hit it up front. I am so proud to be a Wildcat. We have done exceptional. I want to just tell you something that startled me in the financial report. So if you get to the website and you look at this, I want you to look at page 8 and 9. Page 8, since 2014, our expenditures have gone from just over 45 million to almost 60 million. Page 9, I think it's page 9, nope, hold on. What the state provides us over the last 10 years, 2009 we got $7,557. In 2018 we get $7,631. Less than $100 increase per student coming in from the state over 9 years. But our expenditures have gone in 5 years from just over 45 to almost 60. And for the last 5 years, we've been in the black. We're doing something right. We're doing something very right. That's all I have. I guess we're going to move into, or do we have a...
Just one
please,
if I can. So I have this 4B philosophy that I've shared with our employees, and one of those is become your best. And in order to become your best, that means you got to get better at what you do. And so, you know, I want to make sure that people know that we're not afraid to have difficult or hard conversations. If we need to look at some things, we'll look at them in order to become our best. And I was immediately notified by Matt that I need to clarify my clarification because I made a mistake. And so I guess somewhere in there, I said that, you know, if we had a student taking a few courses or a part-time student here, that they could be taking part-time courses someplace else, including the public school. Okay, you can't do that. They could be taking other courses in private schools, but not other public schools. So hopefully I've clarified my clarification. I'm sorry.
Kind of. Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yes.
Move to meet in closed session pursuant to the Open Meetings Act, Section 8C, for the purpose of strategy and negotiation sessions connected with a collective bargaining agreement, and D, to consider the purchase or lease of real property, but only until the time of an option to purchase or lease the real property is obtained.
Is there a second? Ms. Guthrie? Any discussion? All right, then Mark, roll call for attendance for that closed session meeting.
Certainly. Vice President Brazington,
Yes.
Treasurer Guthrie,
Yes.
President Donovan,
Yes.
Secretary Steppick, yes. Bailey's not here. Trustee D'Alessandro.
Yes.
Trustee Schaefer.
Yes.
All right, thank you. So as of 8:20, we're going to move into closed session. Thank you very much to our community and staff. Thank you.